Ants don't knock. One warm morning, there's a single scout crossing a kitchen counter. And by the following week, there's a full column running from a crack in the baseboard straight to the sugar bin. Like they've got a map nobody else can see. That's the moment most people reach for a can of spray. But in a lot of old order AMISH kitchens, from Lancaster County to Holmes County, nobody reaches for a can at all. They reach for the pantry. Because ant control there was never really a chemical problem. It's a housekeeping problem, solved with 3 or 4 ingredients already sitting on the shelf. No exterminator, no plastic bait traps, nothing a toddler or a barn cat could get sick from finding on the floor. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly what's in it, how to mix it, and why it actually works, instead of just moving the problem to the next room. To understand why this method holds up, you have to understand what an ant colony is actually doing in your house. A few scouts wandering your counter aren't the problem. They're the messengers. Each one lays down an invisible chemical trail as it walks, a scent path that tells every ant behind it exactly where the food is. Kill the scout and you've solved nothing, because the trail is still readable, still pulling in reinforcements. Spray the counter with something strong-smelling and you might scatter that one line, but you've done nothing about the nest itself, tucked into a wall void or a porch slab or a stack of firewood 40 feet away. A lot of store-bought sprays fail quietly for exactly this reason. They kill on contact, which feels satisfying, but the colony just reroutes around the dead zone within a day or two. You haven't broken the trail, you've just made them walk around the puddle. The AMISH approach starts from a different question. Instead of asking how to kill the ants you can see, it asks how to make the house unreadable to them in the first place. That distinction is the whole method, and it comes from a practical, faith-shaped view of the home. You don't fight nature with force you can't fully control. You work with what's already there, and keep the household orderly enough that pests have no foothold to begin with. Stewardship, not warfare. So here's what actually goes into it. The base is food-grade diatomaceous earth, a fine white powder made from the fossilized remains of tiny freshwater algae. It looks and feels like flour, and to a human hand, it's essentially inert. But under a microscope, each particle is jagged, almost glass-like. When an ant crosses it, those sharp edges scratch through the waxy coating on its exoskeleton, the layer that normally keeps it from drying out. Within a day or so, the ant dehydrates and dies. No poison, no scent. Nothing for a dog to lap up or a 2-year-old to get sick on if a pinch of it ends up on their fingers. It works by mechanics, not toxicity, which is exactly why it shows up in almost every version of this method. A light dusting goes along baseboards, under appliances, around door thresholds, and in any crack where ants have been spotted entering. Not a thick layer, just enough to look like a faint chalk line. Because too much powder actually lets ants avoid it by walking around the pile instead of through it. Next comes the Trailbreaker, plain white vinegar cut roughly half and half with water in a spray bottle. This doesn't kill anything on contact. What it does is erase the scent trail the scouts laid down, the same way wiping a whiteboard erases the directions written on it. Wipe down counters, door frames and entry points with the mix, and within a few days, with no readable trail pulling them back, traffic through that entry point drops off almost completely. Then there's the barrier layer, ground cinnamon, and in some households, a few drops of peppermint oil, always diluted in water rather than used straight. Ants navigate largely by smell, and both overwhelm their ability to read a trail at all. A line of cinnamon across a windowsill, a few dabs of the diluted mint mix near an outdoor entry point, and that route goes dark for them. Last is the outdoor piece, because the kitchen counter was never the real problem to begin with. The nest is. And that's the part a can of spray never touches. Around the base of the house, especially near a foundation crack or a porch post, a wider band of diatomaceous earth goes down, along with a sprinkle of plain cornmeal near any visible mound. Ants carry cornmeal back to the colony to feed on, and because they can't properly digest it, it disrupts the colony from the inside, instead of just scattering the workers you can see. It's slower than a spray. It's also the difference between a problem that disappears for a week and one that disappears for good. Put together, that's the whole method. Diatomaceous earth at every entry point, vinegar to erase the trail, cinnamon or diluted mint to make the route unreadable, cornmeal at the source outside. None of it needs gloves or a room cleared out for a few hours. The one real caution is the peppermint oil, which stays diluted and up on a shelf rather than at ant height, since cats, in particular, process concentrated essential oils poorly. Everything else, the powder, the vinegar, the cinnamon, washes off skin or fur with nothing more than water. It's also worth saying plainly that this isn't a trick that clears a house of ants in a single afternoon. The first application usually cuts visible activity within 2 or 3 days. But a full colony retreat, the kind where scouts stop showing up altogether, tends to take 1 to 2 weeks, sometimes longer if the nest is well established. The households that swear by this aren't the ones who did it once. They're the ones who reapply the powder after it gets wet or swept away. Keep the vinegar wipe down as a weekly habit through the warm months, and treat it less like a fix and more like the way they already keep a kitchen, swept and wiped without much thought. That's really the last piece of it, and the easiest one to skip. Prevention isn't a step tacked onto the end, it's the whole philosophy underneath the recipe. Crumbs get wiped up the same day. Trash goes out before it sits long enough to smell like an invitation. Firewood stays a few feet off the foundation instead of stacked against it. None of that makes for a dramatic before and after photo, but it's the reason a method built from spice rack ingredients can outperform a can of poison that costs 3 times as much and needs reapplying every other week anyway. So the next time a scout shows up on the counter, there's a real choice sitting there, whether anyone thinks about it that way or not. One option kills what you can see and leaves the nest untouched, ready to send more scouts next week. The other asks for a little more patience and a lighter touch, in exchange for a house the colony eventually stops reading as food at all. Which trade would you actually make? The quick kill or the slow fix that holds? If you've tried a version of this in your own kitchen, the comments are the place to say what worked and what didn't. Because somewhere out there, someone's watching a scout cross their counter right now, trying to decide the same thing.